Jiu-Jitsu is something that I do. It's not who I am. And I think that's why so many people quit Jiu-Jitsu is because they go in and they'll train 6, 7, 8, 9 times a week and they don't see themselves progressing. And I think it's because they've got the wrong mindset of why are they doing this?
Welcome to the Combat Creative Podcast, where we explore the heart of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, uncovering its creative, entrepreneurial, and leadership qualities with guests who embody what it means to be a leader in our BJJ community. Now on 3, 1, 2...
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Combat Creative Podcast. On today's episode, I have Ethan, who is a pastor, father, husband, military veteran, and now has a jiu-jitsu school here in his church. Ethan, thanks for being on.
Dude, thanks for having me, Jared. Appreciate it, bro.
Go ahead and just give us a little introduction, real quick story about you, yourself, how you ended up here in Panama City Beach, and what you are working on here at the church.
Yeah, man. So I was in the Air Force for about 15 years, served as a survival, evasion, resistance, escape specialist. So we teach guys how to survive in the wilderness if they get cut down behind enemy lines, how to evade capture, how to resist interrogation, and ultimately, if you get caught, how to escape. Went into that. That's when I was first introduced to jiu-jitsu. Retired after 15 years, was a private military contractor for about 5 years, and then I've been pastoring now for about 4.5 years. And one thing that I've always wanted to do is open up my own jiu-jitsu school and something that I could pass down to my son, my kids, or anyone else, and just kind of have a lineage like that.
So what inspired you to start this academy within your church facility, and how has the response been from, like, you have a congregation of people, so how have they responded to?
It's, like I said, I've always wanted to open a school. Real estate here in Panama City Beach is tough. And I also, especially with how expensive jiu-jitsu schools are, I wanted to be able to do something that, we train people spiritually within the church, but I also think we need to be training physically within the church.
Sure.
And so I ran it by the leadership here, say, hey, are you guys okay if I start this? And they're like, sure. The church has been very open to it. Almost all of the practitioners with us are members of our church, but then also some people in the local community come as well, which is awesome. That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah. And it's been awesome. It's been going really well so far.
With all that in mind, how do you see kind of intersecting? You have these two things. You have your faith and you have you're teaching physical. You said that's important. How have you kind of merged those two together? Or do you merge those at all in your academy?
I think you have to. I mean, Paul, the Apostle Paul, writer of the New Testament, over half the New Testament, says while physical training is of some value, spiritual training is of even more. And I think so often people just so focus on the spiritual training, which is critical. It's vitally important. But then you don't have the physicality part with that too. You're not really fully equipped to be a full person in Christ. Yes, all we need is Christ, but at the same time, we are to be good stewards with our body. We are to incorporate, healthy lifestyles and habits. And I think jiu-jitsu, there's so many spiritual parallels between jiu-jitsu and Christianity that it teaches discipline. It helps identity. It helps the individual from the inside out. Especially what I love too is a lot of the people in our school, it's fathers and sons. And I love that. Is like now that's something that a lot of dads these days aren't taking time to do something with their kids. And so I think this is very helpful to have fathers and sons doing this together.
One of the things that we hear a lot in churches is trying to build community, and we want people to feel like they belong and they have other families. How have you seen, has having a jiu-jitsu school helped build some kind of community and connection between some of the people here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you've been a part of any jiu-jitsu school, it naturally has a familial connectivity. Yeah. Right. But what is that connectivity grounded in? It's usually grounded in self. It's grounded in the sport. And I love the sport. I've been doing it for a very long time. But there's got to be something better than that. There's got to be something more important than that. And I think that's Christ. And so it has formed a great discipleship, if you will, onboarding ramp for a lot of these people to interact and do life together with them. But yeah, and I don't think you have to force community in jiu-jitsu schools, nor do I think you have to force community in the church. It should happen naturally through relationships.
Yeah, I like that. Sometimes I wonder why in church that is really forced, or why it isn't happening.
Because you're not doing life together. I mean, in jiu-jitsu, think about it. Like, I will know you very intimately as we're wrapping each other up and putting our arms around each other's necks and trying to kill each other. You get to know your partner really quick, your training partner, and especially too if it's your same training partner every week, you know each other a lot. I know This is your injury. This is the side. That's your non-jiu-jitsu side.
Yeah.
And so when you don't do life together in the church, how will I know the individual that I'm going through this spiritual walk with, right? So that's why it's important in the church to have those friendships, to form those bond communities. And the only way you do that is by spending time with each other.
As somebody who used to work in a church full time and now enjoys practicing jiu-jitsu, one of the things I've noticed in looking for schools, I say it's kind of a lot like a church. You got to find one that has good community, that has good culture. Maybe make sure if you don't enjoy going, maybe you should look at another one. If you don't, if you keep getting hurt, maybe you should go see another one. But I had the chance to go early this week, and I'm going tonight. And I had the chance to see fathers and sons there. And where I'm at right now, those classes are separate. So I was actually kind of envious a little bit. That would be nice to do class with my son. It is something we do together, and I think that's great. Ethan, have you had any challenges in balancing the role of being a pastor and jiu-jitsu instructor now?
No, I don't think so. Everything about life is balanced, and everything is your priorities. What is your priorities? What's most important to you? And understanding what are your priorities and what are your values and how much time you're dedicating to each. When I first started this, my wife was very concerned. She's like, you don't need one more thing to add to your table.
Yeah, I know.
But when I see this is a direct investment, one, into the people in the church, but then two, even into my own son, that I'm training him up in a skill that he will have for the rest of his life to protect his family. And then, Lord willing, if I ever do get to open a physical location, once he becomes a black belt, which me and him did the math, he can be a black belt by the age of 22, as long as he continues on.
Right. I was thinking,
then he
talk
can.
To my son about the same thing.
So I mean, it's think about that. Like once you get your black belt, you can. That's a job. Any place you move, if you depending with the right lineage, you can get in and be a coach or a professor or somewhere else eventually. And so I see it as it's always a healthy rhythm and it's always a healthy balance. Jiu-jitsu is something that I do. It's not who I am, and so. And I think that's why so many people quit jiu-jitsu is because they go in and they'll train 6, 7, 8, 9 times a week and they'll get destroyed, they'll get smashed, and they don't see themselves progressing. And I think it's because they've got the wrong mindset of why are they doing this? Is you're doing this for the marathon, not a sprint. Jiu-jitsu is a marathon. If you're trying to achieve your black belt within 8 years, that's great, fantastic, and some people do that. But I've always been of the mindset is like slow progression retains more, which then makes you a better practitioner, which then gives you the long haul. Because I've done that where I've trained 6, 7, 8 times a week. If you think about it too, how much are you really retaining? You're not going to be able to retain that much. Because if I'm doing guard passing on Monday, I'm doing spider guard on Tuesday, and I'm doing deep half on Wednesday, and then I'm going into takedowns on Friday, you're going to forget what you learned on Monday. So get with the fundamentals, understand the basics, and then slowly start to build your game from that. And it's all about balance. It's all about timing, just like it is when you're going for a submission. I'm not going to go right in for the submission. I've got to wait for the timing for my partner to make the mistake. And same thing in life is just don't let it define who you are, and do it when you're able to do it, where it's not going to take away from your bigger priorities and your values, such as your family.
So now the church leadership was like, let's do it. You know, have people coming. How have you adapted the space, and what does that look like?
So I started with... we met in the foyer in the church for the very first time. The school that sponsors me in Pensacola, they came over and we had an interest meeting, and there's like 4 people that showed up, and 3 of which were my coaches from my other school. Then we met upstairs, and I had maybe 10 mats, the Dahlimer, the ones that you saw, and not a very large training space. And we had 3 people, no experience. Started to come, and then it's just been growing since then. So now we meet in the children's area where the kids have their worship time, and it's a much larger space. We've had to buy a little bit more mats, and we're already outgrowing that. So it's a great problem to have. So it's just been it's been a huge blessing.
In traveling for work and visiting other schools, it sometimes I've been in many different settings. I've been in super fancy clean gyms. I've been in ones that have more tape holding the mats together than mats. I've been to now ones in churches. And sometimes I think when I was starting off visiting, I would visit and maybe judge the space, but then realize, well, once I get on the mat, it's just jiu-jitsu. And so it's been really neat kind of seeing how maybe the space doesn't matter as much as long as you get there, you get on the mat and you train. All that other stuff doesn't matter.
Well, think about how it's how the Gracie started in a garage, right?
Right, so I mean,
You got to think, you're going to these academies for the content, not necessarily for the environment. Now, granted, like Art of Jiu-Jitsu, their space is gorgeous.
Right.
All white and everything. I'd love to have that. But at the same time, it's like, and they're putting out the content. So if you can have both, that's like incredible. But, I would never not go to a gym just because it looks, now if they're not cleaning the mats, that's a whole other thing.
Another thing.
But, I go for the content and I go for the environment and I go for the learning. And I moved around a ton too, and I traveled a bunch, and I would always bring my stuff in and drop in. And I've been, like you said, to the high class ones, the low class ones. But the thing is that's common throughout all is just the love for jiu-jitsu. So
I want to go back real quick. You have a little bit of military background, right? So you touched on that at the beginning. How has that part of your life influenced you as now a leader and influenced you in the school?
I never wanted to go into the ministry. That was never on my radar whatsoever. But the amount of items that I learned in leadership and everything else from the military directly correlates into the ministry. Leading people, budgeting, making tough decisions. And the biggest thing that I learned in the military is indecision is no decision, which is an actual bad decision. So you always need to be able to make a decision and then own that decision and not make up excuses for why you did what you did. And a good thing with the leader too that I've realized is I've never had a good leader any time that I served in the military. I had some good guys that I worked with, but I never had a good leader. Really? And so I developed my leadership philosophy off of how I didn't want to be. So through the art of negation, I figured out how to be a leader. And the biggest thing that I realized with a leader is that we see through Christ is a servant leadership characteristic is the leader is there to serve the people, not the other way around. But too often people think that the people under the leader are there for the benefit of the leader. No, my goal as a leader is to help push these individuals to become better, to help them in their career progression, to help them professionally develop themselves, to not let them be okay with mediocrity. Mediocrity is for cowards, and I don't want anyone to ever be complacent and comfortable where they're at. They always need to have a goal that they're attaining. They always need to have something that they're shooting for, just like in jiu-jitsu. Why do you come? To get better, to get ready for a competition, to promote, to whatever it is, whatever your motivation is. Everyone comes to the mats with a different motivation. And what you as a leader need to understand is what motivates your people. Once you find what they're passionate about, what motivates them, you pour gas on that, and then you delegate and you let them go. You give them the left and the right parameters, but you don't micromanage. Micromanagement is the death of organizations.
Now transitioning to anybody out there who maybe is in the same boat as you, has wanted to start a school, maybe like you, they don't have the facilities yet. What type of advice do you have for anybody who's thinking about starting a school?
I would say first and foremost, like, are you able to teach? Teaching jiu-jitsu is a lot different than doing it. You may be able to get on the mat yourself and do an arm trap and roll or a guard escape, but can you teach through the intricacies and the details and think through the problem sets and predict what questions they have and be ready to show the different variations for the questions that they have? So that would be my number one thing. So number two thing is if you already are in a school, express interest to that school and hopefully they'll invest in you. And then I don't think a lot of schools do the technical blue belt anymore where you're the instructor or you're the coach as a blue belt. But then like that was something that was very helpful to me is I had a coach that started to help train me and letting me teach the beginners classes and stuff like that because it changes everything to adjust the person's grip to make sure that they're doing it the right way. Those small little, dare I say, micro adjustments, it's very key. So once you've got that, then two, figure out, well, one, what belt are you? They took a risk in letting me, the school that's sponsoring me, I mean, I'm only a purple belt. I've been training since 2007, but because of my military training and everything else, I was never at a gym for more than 3 years.
Long enough to keep progressing.
So, but they've seen me roll enough at the other school I was at. They've seen my character, and then that's what they look for more, at least my school. They want to see your character, and they want to see that you're in this for the long haul because when they step out and they sponsor you to become an affiliate through them, they're taking a risk on you because the success or failure of you will directly relate to them. So I would say teach, learn to teach.
Okay.
Can you teach? Is the school that you're at willing to sponsor you? Because especially if you're trying to launch it in their backyard, maybe it's not the best idea to do that because now you're going to be robbing from your family here. Yeah. So where I'm at, the nearest school is, I think, about 8 miles east of us. There's nothing near us on this west end of Panama City Beach.
Yeah.
And there's nothing from here all the way into almost Santa Rosa Beach. So there's a huge gap here. And so is there a need for it as well?
I think that's really great to think about. In consulting businesses, we have those same conversations quite a bit. You meet people who are on teams who want to go out and start their own thing, Those are some of the things that we talk about. Is it going to be competing? Is there a need? So,
Yeah.
But teaching is huge. Just because you have a colored belt around your waist doesn't mean you're a good teacher. And I'm sure we've all experienced that. I want to know your future goals for the church here, and also your future goals for the Jiu-Jitsu Academy that you have here.
So for the church, I just want to continue to grow our people here to understand what the Bible says, that they can read it and interpret for themselves, to raise biblical literacy as a whole, and then take that to affect our local community. I think that's the only way that we can affect is God chose to use the church as a means of propagating the message, and we need to be about doing what we're doing, right? So now with jiu-jitsu as well, my hope is that we'll find a storefront here, open up the school. We're hopefully going to be launching kids classes in the summertime.
Right.
And to give more opportunities for training. And the only way we can grow our school is by actually having a storefront commercial space, which around here is very difficult.
Go ahead and share where they can find you, the church, the school. You mind sharing that?
So on Instagram, you can find me on Ethan Jago, at Ethan Jago, ETHANJAGO. Our church, fivebridges.church. And then our school is Gracie_PCB on Instagram as well. So yeah, would love to connect with you guys. And if you're ever in PCB, drop in, bring your gi or no gi, whatever, and shoot me a message, and we'd love to have you.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into this episode. With all the podcasts you could be watching and listening on the internet, the fact that you took time out of your day to tune into this one, I greatly appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.